Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to stick to Sweden, and we're also going to stick to my home county of Skåne here in the very south of the country. For this review we'll return to a brewery that is very local to me and has featured on the channel a good number of times before. I've had some nice beers from these guys, but the beer that we're trying today is a style that I've never had from them, and I have to say I'm very curious to see how this one turns out. So for this review then we are going to head to Eslöv, a little bit to the northeast of me here in Lund, and we're going to return to Remmarlöv Gårdsbryggeri. So the beer we're having a taste of today is the sour raspberry and mango. It comes in at 4% ABV, and they're describing this one as a Berliner Weisse. So yeah, this is the very first sour beer that I'm having from Remmarlöv. Normally it's different IPAs and things like that, and a few lager beers that I'll have from these guys. I've had one or two stouts and things over the years as well, but yeah, very first sour beer from these guys, and there is another one coming out in March that you'll see me review as well. So yeah, nice to see these guys doing something a little bit different, and I'm very curious, and I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this beer then. So yeah, let's see how we get on. So yeah, as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Remmarlöv Gårdsbryggeri before, and we will no doubt do more reviews from these guys in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel of course has a geography based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you happen to be interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Swedish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's constantly being added to, and as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Remmarlöv Gårdsbryggeri then, on to my brewery notes. So Remmarlöv Gårdsbryggeri, as I've mentioned to you already, are based in Eslöv. As the name suggests with the word Gård, it's based on a farm, and these guys have been brewing since the autumn-winter of 2014, and they released their first beers through Systembolaget the following January in 2015. But the owner and founder of this company is Håkan Nilsson. Together with his wife Michelle, he started his plan for a brewery a couple of years prior to its foundation, and as I kind of mentioned, it's located on his family farm, and Håkan is the fifth generation of his family to make his living here in the countryside of Skåne. But the old barn was renovated and a brew house of 1500 litres was installed, and then they hired Hampus Olofsson as their brewer in August of 2014, and he previously worked for Malmö Brewing Company, who I do recommend that you check out, by the way. Brew pub, lovely beers, and definitely a place to go and visit if you find yourself in the city of Malmö. But over the last few years, these guys have been expanding their brewery. They now have a 3,000 litre brew kit, and they invested in new fermentation tanks in spring of 2018, and this takes their theoretical capacity up to 800,000 litres of beer, although I couldn't find an exact amount that they produced over the course of 2019 or 2020. But in 2019 they did open up their summer pub, which was opening up every Wednesday, and they were planning to do some more expansions in the brewery over 2020, but I'm not sure if that's happened because you know, obviously COVID-19 and things like that. I know that they were having a few issues with other parts of the business, but over the whole course of the pandemic, apparently the brewery has actually increased its sales through Systembolaget. So yeah, that is pretty cool actually. But as of February 2021, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced over 60 different kinds of beer, and that number increases basically every month. They do release another kind of one or two beers every month through Systembolaget here in Sweden. But yeah, that's all I can really tell you about Remmarlöv Gårdsbryggeri for the moment. They do some really nice beers. One of my favourite beers that I've had from these guys in recent times was the Skånsk Pils, which had Skånsk malt, Skånsk hops, and I think it was even a Skånsk kind of derived yeast that they were using in this one, come to think of it. So yeah, that was a really nice beer, and I do hope that the production of, you know, Skånsk hops can make it so that that becomes a regular beer, because that honestly I thought was a very nicely done Pilsner beer. But these guys do a lot of New England hazy IPAs. They do some West Coasters as well, and they also do quite a few. I've had a few darker beers from these guys as well. Probably one of their The best beers I had from these guys early on was was either the Red Slope or the Red Carroll. Their Winter Red Ale is always a very, very nice one, so that's definitely worth checking out. But yeah, these guys, really nice little local brewery here in Skåne, and one that I would recommend that you check out if you get the chance. But yeah, that's all I can really tell you about Remmarlöv Gårdsbryggeri for the moment. So if you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on. And you can, of course, check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all those different beers that they've done. I think I've reviewed about 15 or 16 of the different beers that Remmarlöv have released. But yeah, let's get on and actually have a taste of this beer then. So as you can see, the artwork on this one is kind of similar in style to what you'd normally get from Remmarlöv, but the background is of course a little bit different because it's a sour beer, and like I say, I think this is the first sour beer that they've released, come to think of it. But there you can see at the top of the can, there is the Remmarlöv Gårdsbryggeri symbol. You can see on the back it has their typical made in Skåne thing as well. But yeah, 4.0% Berliner Weisse, or 4,0 as the Swedes would say, with raspberries and mangoes in it. So yeah, I think this should be pretty cool. I think I forgot to mention earlier, this beer was released, I think, as part of the January 2021 Lokales Muskelig assortment. So yeah, this one came through Systembolaget in January of 2021, but it kind of got pushed to the back of the fridge a little bit and I forgot about it. But it should still be fine. I think it should still be fine. The Berliner Weisses can usually last for a little bit, so yeah, it should be okay. But yeah, this one, 330ml can, I think I would have paid roughly about 30 Swedish kroners for this. So €3, £2.50, and I guess maybe about $3.50 American at maximum. So yeah, 4% Berliner Weisse, this one with raspberry and mango. Let's get it out and we'll get on with the tasting then. Very curious to see what this beer has in store for us. Let's go for it. Ooh, does look pretty nice actually. I'm curious just to see how kind of malty leaning this one is as a Berliner Weisse as well. But yeah, these styles, the big juicy fruity beers, the Berliner Weisses and the Goses are of course increasing in popularity at the moment. You've got quite a few breweries in Sweden doing some really nice example of these. You've got Wizard, Morgendagens, Fermenterarna, who else have we got? Duck Pond have been doing some nice beers. Omnipojo, of course, have a lot of these too. Brewski and Brekeriet, of course, have a history of good sour beers. So, yeah, it's definitely an interesting thing to think about here. But yeah, lots of good sour beer breweries in Sweden these days, so it's kind of cool to see Remmarlöv jumping on the bandwagon a little bit, if you like, and having a go at some of these beers. So yeah, this one looks pretty nice. So as you can see, when we poured this beer, it had about a half finger, maybe a little bit more of a frothy, I would say kind of perfect white head, to be honest, although if we'd looked at it closely, it might have had a little kind of coloured tint to it. But yeah, it looks very, very nice, this one, I have to say. One or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, a few little ones going up towards the bottom of the head there, and I mean, overall, it looks very, very nice, I have to say. I like how, I do like how that appears. I mean, I'm trying to think of a good descriptor for the colour here. It's almost like an Iron Brew colour, but I don't know how relevant that is to Swedes. It's almost the same colour as the Iron Brew kind of fizzy juice that we get back home in Scotland. But yeah, I'd describe this one as being, it's actually quite a kind of orangey ginger, ginger hair type colour. I really don't know how to describe that one. I'm surprised at the colour of this beer, to be honest with you. It's almost the same colour as, like cloudberries. It's almost like a cloudberry type colour. Maybe that's a good descriptor for the Swedes. It's almost like a kind of cloudberry colour actually, which is kind of interesting. I wouldn't have expected that, to be honest with you. But yeah, interesting. It's got a little bit of a natural haze to it, this one, but if we shine the light through it, you can see it is just a little bit opaque, Nice little bit of a kind of wheaty, you can see one or two little tiny bits of wheaty sediment kind of floating around in this one. But yeah, as I say, nice kind of bright, almost ginger hair type colour. Light haze to it, had a kind of perfect, you had a big white head on it when we poured it out. So yeah, nothing overly surprising about this one, apart from the colours a little bit more kind of gingery than I thought it was going to be. But yeah, let's take a closer look at the aroma of this one then, and see how we get on. The appearance, if you take the point of, these fruity sours can always have some interesting colours, it's not madly surprising, to be honest with you. But yeah, let's have a closer look at the aroma of this one then, and just see how we get on with this beer. That does actually smell really nice. Yeah, I mean, the thing with these kind of big fruity sours, as I've said in other reviews, I find these beers, you know, very, very straight shooting. And this one I don't think is any exception to that. They're very straight shooting in terms of their flavour profile and aroma, but I think they can work out just, you know, really, really nicely. I like how these, how all of these things kind of go together. So yeah, straight away with this beer, you do get a nice little bit of a soft kind of bready note underneath it. You get some, you can definitely pick up a little touch of the wheaty characters in there, but again, as you often get with these Berliner Weisses, it gives you the impression of that kind of petit filou yogurt type thing, which I really, really like. I always enjoy that about these kind of sour beers. The malt bases are always nice, but again, it's very straight shooting. I don't think there's too much more to say about the malt base other than the fact that it comes across a bit yogurty. It smells a little bit almost kind of creamy in a sense, and you've got just a wee touch of a wheaty, white bready sort of thing to this one. So I really like how this, I really like how all of this kind of pieces together. So yeah, it's got a big, you know, just nice straight shooting Berliner Weisse malt base to it. So yeah, I get the impression from this one it's actually going to be really nice and quite drinkable actually. But yeah, on the fruity side of things, it is again what you would expect. It's got a nice, you can smell the sort of creamier mango underneath. I mean, you do get that nice, the mango sort of plays in with the kind of yogurty vibe that the beer has, but then you can smell the sharper and juicier raspberries kind of sitting on top of it. But in fairness, you know, the raspberry does kind of play into the sort of yogurty smell that you get out of this beer as well. So yeah, I mean, both of these fruits, I mean, raspberry and mango do work very, very well together, I have to say. I think I've had quite a few sour beers with this combination in it, so it's tried and tested. But the next sour they've got coming out, I think, is pineapple and guava, so I'm curious to see. I don't know if that's a Berliner Weisse as well, but I think that one will be quite interesting to take a look at. But yeah, I think this beer, I'm curious as to whether it has a little bit of hop in it, because as I've said in other reviews, quite a lot of the breweries these days, they don't put hops in these, but in Sweden at least, they don't put a lot of hops in the Berliner Weisses and these big Gose things that they do. Back home in Scotland, there's a brewery called Vault City who are getting a lot of praise at the moment, but they actually put hops in their beers, and I think putting a little bit of hop in the beers just adds a little bit more of depth to the aroma and the flavour. Quite often with these Berliner Weisses, you know, they would, in Goses, they would use older hops and lower alpha acid hops so that the bitterness didn't kind of overshadow the kind of sour qualities, if you like. But even with the ones where they don't use hops, even with the ones that where they don't use hops, you do actually still get a little bit of the green kind of side of things out of the beer. But for me with this one, you can smell a slightly soft earthiness to it. There is a wee bit of floral note, I think. There is a little bit of a kind of floral character to this one, and you do get a wee bit of grassiness. I'm tempted to say that there is a wee bit of hop in this beer, I would say. So yeah, I'm just curious to see. It actually just says it contains corn malt or veta malt. It doesn't say anything about hops. But I would be tempted to say this one maybe does have just a little bit of hop in it. But it's a bit strange that, because I think in Sweden you actually do have to, right, because they don't say, maybe it doesn't have any barley malt in it. Because usually I think they've got, because I would have thought, you know, if they've got raspberry and mango in this one, usually they would have to see that on the ingredients list as well. So I'm a bit curious about that. Yeah, I am a little bit curious about the fact that the ingredients list is very, very short in this one, that it only says barley malt and wheat malt in it, so there's no oats in this one. I think I've said the wrong thing there. Yeah, I said, you know, I think I said, yeah, wheat and oats earlier. Brain's not working. So yeah, this one has barley malt in it and it's got wheat malt in it, but it mentions nothing about the fruit and nothing about any hops. So yeah, kind of strange that, kind of strange, because I would have thought they'd have to say, you know, like yeast, and they'd have to list the fruits on the contents as well. I don't know how strict the Swedish laws are, but I know in Scotland, yeah, you have to list basically all the ingredients in case people are allergic and stuff. But then again, I guess when it's called, you know, mango and raspberry sour, that should be pretty damn obvious. But yeah, I mean, I would wonder from this one if whether it had a bit of hop in it, because it does give you just a wee bit of grassiness and a wee bit of floral note, and there's a wee touch of earthiness there, so it could have a little bit of, you know, Czech Sats, Styrian Golding, or a bit of, you know, Hallertauer Titnanger or something like that in it. But yeah, the aroma of this one, it comes across really, really nicely, and I have to say I'm just very curious about this beer now. So as I always say, take a bit of time to enjoy the aroma of these fruity sour beers. They're very straight shooting, not the most complex of aromas, but they do go together really nicely. You get lovely, they're just lovely and juicy things. Let's get stuck into this one then. So this one is the sour raspberry and mango, a Berliner Weisse at 4.0% ABV from Remmarlöv Gårdsbryggeri in Eslöv here in Skåne in the south of Sweden. Slange, skål, cheers. My first sour beer from these guys. Oh yeah. That is pretty nice actually. It's a very easy drinking one. This is, the first impression I would have of this beer is that it's very easy drinking. Be an ideal kind of summer beer, that, to be quite honest with you. So I always wonder that with breweries, when they release the sours in the winter. I actually would have thought maybe a better launch time for this would have been, when the weather's starting to get a wee bit better. So it's interesting that, but then again, they've obviously been developing these for a little bit of time. It's a new year. I can see why they would release it in January as well. And I think people don't care so much about the whole summer beer idea these days, in fairness. But yeah, that's actually very, very nice. I mean, this is, it's a very, very drinkable, very straight shooting sour beer. Is it the craziest beer you're going to find from Remmarlöv Gårdsbryggeri? No. Is it the the sort of most kind of striking one you're going to find? No. But is it really nice within its style category? Yes, it is. It's just a really, really nice, easy drinking sour beer, this one. But then when you go with raspberry and mango, you do expect a kind of sort of softer, juicy type side to the sour to come out, and that's exactly what it gives you. So I'm going to say thumbs up to Remmarlöv Gårdsbryggeri for this one. It's a really nice, just very, very easy drinking sour beer, this one. I think these guys do need to open up a wee bar in Malmö or something like that, or even, well, maybe in Lund could be a good idea as well. It would be nice to see these guys open up a tap room here in Lund and do something like that. Once the whole COVID-19 pandemic's gone, of course, that would be great. But this is the sort of sour beer you could go in the bar and just kind of sip on with your dessert or something like that. Would be ideal. Well, I suppose, come to think of it, the one thing that there might be a wee bit of an issue with for Remmarlöv would be they'd have to choose. These guys, obviously, they put out a lot of different beers these days, so they'd probably have to choose, 2 or 3 of their beers to make a kind of core range, if you like. That would be the one thing they would definitely need to kind of settle on, if you like. So yeah, that's one of the wee hindrances they've got in that sense. But if this is their first sour that they're producing, I can see that they're going to do pretty well with these over the next wee while. So yeah, as I say, this one's quite a light, easygoing, just drinkable Berliner Weisse. So yeah, a lot of the breweries that are producing these kind of beers these days make them very, very thick. This one is a bit lighter. It gives you the flavour profile you want, and it's just nice. It's almost a little bit more traditional, dare I say. It's almost a little bit more like the ones you would actually drink in Berlin itself, actually. So yeah, it's interesting. Definitely an interesting one. So yeah, let's try and just break down the flavour profile of this beer then. Straight away across the middle of your palate, you can feel that nice kind of soft white bready backbone there. That just blankets the middle of your tongue. You can feel kind of sitting on top of that, you've got that slightly thicker kind of wheaty quality coming out of the beer. And in the in the middle third of your palate, you can feel it almost just gives you that nice kind of yogurty quality as well. You do get that, and then you can feel the raspberry and the mango just kind of playing off of that, actually. So yeah, it's interesting that, the malt base is very, very straight shooting, as the aroma kind of implies. So yeah, fruity side of this beer, I think, is very, very nicely done. So thumbs up to Remmarlöv for this. I think it's solid, and as I say, it comes across quite similar to the Berliner Weisses that you'd have in Berlin. It's definitely more of a kind of traditional Berliner Weiss almost than some of these big sweet ones that you're getting from the other kind of sour beer breweries here in Sweden. So yeah, I'm going to say with this one, I don't think there's hops in this. I think it's a bit smooth on the side of the palate for there to be hops in there. So it does give you, as I say, it gives you a wee bit of green in the aroma, but not in the flavour. Although in fairness, you do get a wee bit of earthiness there. You do get a wee tiny little bit of floral character on the front corners of the palate and a wee bit of grassiness around the front edge of the tongue. But other than that, there's not how do you say? There's not like so much in the way of there's not so much in the way of how do you say? There's not like so much in the way of kind of green characteristics to this one. It's just very smooth around the edge of the palate, and of course it is normally the edge of the palate where the hoppy characters would come out of the beer. Absolutely. But yeah, on the fruity side of things then, when you first take this beer in, just behind the very kind of front tip of the tongue, you do get a wee bit of the tartness out of the raspberry. But then you can feel on that border region between middle third and front third of your palate, you can feel the wheatiness almost just kind of thickens out a little bit, and you get a wee bit more of that yogurty thing. That's when you really start to feel the mango out of this one. The mango really has a kind of creamy, yogurty sort of thing to it, and I think the mango comes out a wee bit more in the aftertaste. The raspberry's there from the beginning, but I think the mango flavours really start to come out the further you go into the aftertaste. So you take it in and it's a little bit sharp, but then you know, the further forward you go, the further forward that you go in the flavour with this one, the more kind of sharp and things it gets. So I really like how all of that goes together. It is very nicely done actually. So yeah, when you take it in, you get a little bit of tartness there, and it just kind of smoothens out and juices up, and then you start to get the softer side of the raspberries, but then later the juiciness of the raspberry kind of subsides a little bit, and you get the smoothness of the mango just coming out of the beer. For me, one of the things I always kind of assess a sour beer on, whenever you take them in, they're always really sharp and kind of, they give you a little bit of a kind of puckering character, but the way I assess a sour is how that just kind of juicens up and shows you the sweeter, juicier side of the beer. And this one does it really nicely actually. It's definitely one of the kind of wetter sours that I've come across. It's a very simple sort of flavour profile that you get out of this, but it works. You might get the impression of a few say kind of like slightly figgy kind of notes and stuff like this. You know, there is a wee bit of a kind of just like almost like a strawberry kind of thing in this beer as well. You do get a little bit of that just from the yogurty side of things, and this can often happen with sours where you add a little bit of, you know, kind of berry fruit and things like that. You can get a few other wee flavours in there, but yeah, the fruity side of this beer I think just goes together really nicely. More kind of raspberry orientated in the beginning, but then later on in the aftertaste it leans more towards the mango. But yeah, just a really nice drinkable Berliner Weisse, this one. I think it's done really nicely, and it's got the lightness that you would expect of this style if you drank it in Berlin itself. So yeah, I think that kind of covers the flavour profile of this one quite well, to be honest with you. But yeah, on the mouthfeel side of things then, what would we say about this? You know, I'd say it's kind of top end of light bodied, bottom end of mid bodied. One of the lighter Berliner Weisses that I've had in quite a while, as I've said. Carbonation is very smooth. It's got a wetness to it, little touch of an oily character as well. And yeah, it works. It really does work. So in terms of the how would you say? In terms of the fruity, in terms of the kind of IBU count and things like that, I think this beer, technically speaking, would have 0 IBUs, but I think in reality it's going to have something like 5. I always say this about the sour beers. I think they do have just a little touch of bitterness to them, although from a technical kind of brewing point of view, they will have 0. But the malt base is, as I say, is quite smooth and quite sweet. You've got a nice juicy fruity character to it, a little bit of sharpness, and then you've also got you've got a nice kind of smoother, juicy fruit that comes out of this beer a little bit later on. And in honesty, I think that sums up this beer quite concisely, to be honest with you. So thumbs up to Remmarlöv Gårdsbryggeri for this one. I think they've pulled off a solid beer here, so well done to them. Absolutely well done to them. So I look forward to seeing what the next sour from these guys is going to be like, and I hope that you guys continue to enjoy my Remmarlöv reviews. So let's leave it there for this one. This one was the Sour Raspberry Mango Berliner Weisse at 4% ABV with raspberry and mango, obviously, from Remmarlöv Gårdsbryggeri in Eslöv here in Skåne in the south of Sweden. cool to try another beer from these guys, especially my first sour beer. So yeah, once again, thank you for watching my reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Remmarlöv Gårdsbryggeri. We will return to these guys next month for their other sour that they're going to release. And I'll catch you guys in the next review. Slàinte, skål, cheers. Check out my social media, check out Remmarlöv Gårdsbryggeri, and I'll see you guys later on. Slàinte, skål, cheers.